Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. You
We'll
ready?
get that. Yo.
You ready? I'm ready. Well, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us back for episode 3 of Between Two Borders. My name is Joe Posada.
Anacleto Giovanni Contreras.
Oh, snap. You dropped the middle name and the second last name. There we go. So, how you doing today, bro?
Hey, man, I'm happy.
You're happy? Es todo. Me too. Ahí andamos. And man, like I was checking today on Facebook, and our memory started kicking in. Man, you know where we were at 8 years ago during this time frame?
No, bro, but I'm pretty sure Facebook knows, bro. What
¿Verdad?
does Facebook say? What does Facebook say, Joe?
Facebook is telling us that 8 years ago we were out in the Grand Canyon with our buddy of ours, Bonnie. Shout out to Bonnie for the one time we went to high school together. All three of us were in the same calculus class también, and como se me, we stayed in touch for what 10 years también, 10 and a half years already. And then we're also with Miss Mac, White Mama. And for those that don't know, we actually we will be keep bringing up White Mama, Miss Mac, throughout maybe to the life of this podcast, because she's a very important individual. She's actually our what we consider our mom, our white mom. She was our calculus teacher back at Adamson, back in 08, 09, and she was more than a teacher to us. She really took it to the next level. And I think she was the only teacher that actually like took interest in our success, not only like my success or your success, but like basically the entire class. Whoever she taught, she made sure that she was there for them, and for us, we became her adopted children. And so in one of those things, we were able to go down to the Grand Canyon. You remember, man?
White Sands, New Mexico, Joe. That's what Facebook said.
Oh, White Sands. We were in White
Today
Sands.
we
White
were
Sands.
in White Sands, New Mexico.
White Sands, man. That was the first time I ever saw white sand like that.
So
It was
let
like
me tell
mountains
you,
and
Joe,
mountains.
Mama
And
outdid us, Joe.
yeah, and then we at some point we ended up at Ruidoso, New Mexico. Shout out to them. That's where I actually bought my first Tribalera boots out there. And my little Tejana and whatnot. And then and then from there we actually was at that time we went to Vegas too. Ultimate,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh man, you remember? Oh man, you know what I just remember on that trip?
That I pulled
We got
over.
pulled over, man. I was gonna say you, but I was in that car too. It just so happens that you were driving, but yeah, and we got pulled over by a cop in front of us.
Yeah.
Can you believe
Cop
that?
was in front of us, and he decided to turn on his lights, and and he hit the brakes, and I had to hit mine. Like, what is this dude doing? And, yeah, he pulled us over, and he was trying to get on my nerves, but hey, we stayed calm, and that's whenever I became a naturalized citizen, Jeff.
Oh yeah, that is true.
So I had my documentation in check.
Yeah,
But
man,
man,
that was an interesting experience. I've never been pulled over by a cop in front of us, man.
dude, he was angry.
I do remember.
Like, this dude was turning red.
Like a little strawberry, little peach.
But man, whatever. But hey, we're here. We got Bonnie back. We got Mama back. We got all of us back, safe and sound. So that's what matters, Joe.
Yeah,
So,
we made it. We made it, man. So, man, but it's all good. So again, shout out to everybody tuning in again for our third episode. Hoping that that you're enjoying them so far, and just know that we're trying to keep putting content out there, and anything that you actually want us to talk about or anything, just feel free to let us know. We'll definitely touch on it. But I think for this podcast, we're actually gonna go a little bit more deep dive on what we actually talked about last podcast, in just terms of like high school experience, college experience. But I think specifically talking about mostly the being a top 10% student as a first generation college student, man. Like really understanding what did that mean, or what did that meant for us, and then also kind of understanding like that experience in itself. So, and for those that don't know, in the event that we have folks that are listening outside of the state, Texas, or just that we've graduated, it's been so long that we've removed plus 10 years from graduation. The top here in Texas, we have a top 10% rule, or the top 10% law, that is common. It's also known, it's another name for House Bill 588. And essentially this basically a law that passed back in 1997 that guarantees Texas students who graduate in the top 10% of their high school to be automatically admitted to all state-funded universities, with the exception of UT. UT, it depends on the legislative year. Hello, Aggie here. UT, I believe for this upcoming year, they look at top 6%. And then in previous years, it's been different. It changes and what have you. So with the exception of UT, the rest of public state funded institutions are, basically is and essentially accept top 10% students in the top 10%. And so, which is interesting because, you and I both made top 10%, right? Both of us made top 10%. We thought, well, not we thought, but I think people painted for us that we were like, I mean, and I think we are smart, right? But I don't think I was smart enough to be ready to be college ready for sure, because as we'll dive a little bit longer here in this podcast, like we talk about how, I mean, we struggled, man. We struggled in that first year, the first semester was very very critical and crucial. But you know the Heckinger report talks about how some research, and so this is some of the things that even us, we looked at it, shows research that a policy that takes the top students from state high schools doesn't really increase diversity in Texas elite universities or increase the number of high schools that feed them, which is an interesting, because I mean, I think that's something that we can definitely touch on a little bit more in essentially what that means. But I mean, I know that for me is like the top 10% rule is something that, like, I think the top 10% rule gives us the opportunity, right? I don't think it gives us like a clean slate, like, hey, like you're top 10%, you're going to be automatically successful in college. I don't think that's the case, right? I don't think I ever believed that. I think what it did or what it does gives us an opportunity, right, to at least get our foot in front of the door through the universities that we want to play, at least through the state of Texas. Because I mean, outside of states, they don't really take into consideration your ranking. They really look at your SAT, ACT scores, your personal statement, and what have you. So, again, I think that universities and colleges don't do a good job to prepare to accept students like us, which is first gen, low income students. That we make it to the top 10%. But whenever it's time to get down and dirty and transition over to college, I think that's where we struggle for sure. So I think, again, so this is kind of where I'm at. So what are your initial thoughts? Like, what would you think like about that? Like just the top 10%, being in top 10%, and going from there.
So I mean, as you get older, your thoughts change over time, right? So I mean, when I was in high school, I was excited to barely make it into the top 10%, right? And that was interesting. Just given my background, so associating something that many individuals look at as a high prestige in high school been given to me was like, well, damn, dude. I mean, I guess I got lucky or hit the jackpot being in the top 10%. Right now, I can get admitted to any institution I want, right? Um, and I mean, which I did, right? And you did, right? We got admitted to every single institution that we applied. I really wanted to go to Baylor, but they didn't give the money. But this top 10%, I guess they passed it to remove race from the admission criteria. And that report that you mentioned, it was interesting that there was really no increase, or they really didn't see an increase. And I mean that makes us think, right? And if we look at the data for here in Dallas County, it makes us think. I mean, are we focusing too much at forcing? I say force, right? Our students to get into a college knowing that they will fail, right? And I mean, that question you posed during our last podcast, are we intentionally preparing our students for failure? And to me, by focusing on the top 10% percent rule, I mean, if I made it, anyone else can make it, right?
Hmm.
And during our high school years, Joe, I mean, we saw that, right? We had an individual, and I mean, this is not to bash on the individual, right? But he came from a different district, right? And I mean, I don't know if he made it to the top 10% or whatnot, which I would say he did, right? Because the school that he went to. But that's what many individuals do, Joe, from wealthy families, right? They send their high performing students into low performing schools just to exploit that system, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, that's something else that we also need to look at. If we're wanting, like you stated, right? If we're wanting universities to understand people like us, I feel that we need to look at different policies that have been passed and look at it at a comprehensive level, right? Because we can't be doing this and having other individuals come and take advantage of something that was meant, like it really was meant for low income first generation students that uh, had no other way of getting into these institutions without something to benefit them, right? But now it's somewhat working against it, because I mean, whenever I was at A&M, dude, there was not many people that looked like me, right? You know, I did meet some people that spoke Spanish, but you know, they were not from my part of my Spanish community that I knew, right? My Mexican individuals, I mean, you know, they understood the system more. They were highly intelligent, highly educated than I did. And I mean, I guess we did. I mean, we had a good question, but we just answered it, Joe. So, what do you think? As being, you know, the top 10%, we said that it's not a determining factor for us to have success in college, right, Joe? So talk to us about your first year in college, right? Tell us the school that you attended, and just tell us about how, or what was your first semester, you know, how was your first semester? And then, you know, we'll ask again about the skills that you learned that forced you to have success during that first year.
No, for sure. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think for me on my end, like, again, I don't think I can say that being a top 10% gave like, well, that it was like solely because I was a top 10% I became successful, right? I don't think that's entirely true, but I also don't believe that not being in the top 10%, like, I don't think I can argue like against it, be like, oh, that whether top 10% helped or not, because it just, it happened that, that I was, I managed to be in the top 10%, and it helped me. At least it opened the door for me to get admitted. Because I remember my conversation with the advisor on campus at Adamson was like, he said, "Congratulations, you've been admitted to any and every, public university in the state of Texas, pending that you just submit your stuff and you're good to go." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well that was easy, But had he not mentioned that, I would have not known, right? And so I would have just continued, because I mean, again, for most of us, I mean, I know I didn't get exposure to colleges until I was essentially a senior. Like, I knew of them. I think I went to a couple of community colleges because of specific events. I know, shout out to, well, now Dallas College, when they used to host Llaves del Éxito, Keys to Success, and we were part of that. We would go once a semester, and that's, I mean, we would have conversations about college, but again, like, I think it opened the door for me to be like, oh, I can make it, right? I'm already admitted, so why not try? And so when I was graduating, or when I was wrapping up our last year at Adams, and 809, I was we're looking at different institutions. I almost ended up with you, at that A&M. Unfortunately, they didn't have the major that I wanted. So I ended up going to UT Dallas, which is roughly about 20-25 minutes north from where we're at, or at least from where I'm at in Oak Cliff. So it's in Richardson. So which is really, I mean, it's a great institution, man. Like, it's, as now as I've realized as an alumni from the institution, like, it's getting only bigger and more rigorous as we're going. And so I managed to get admitted to UT Dallas. I managed to get a decent financial reward package from them, with scholarships. I had merit-based scholarships, need-based scholarships that, so when I went to UTD, I was like, man, like, I felt leaving Adamson, I was a big fish in a small pond, which is the same comment, that we talked about last episode. But when I get there, man, like, it was like going referencing to what you just mentioned. I was the only brown kid in my classes. I was taking, first of all, I was taking 17 hours my first semester, which nobody told me it was a big no, which was roughly what, about maybe 5 classes, and then like a 1 hour classes and what have you. And so if you're looking about maybe 6-7 classes physically, but only being 17 hours. And so, again, no one told me that was a big no. I was living on campus, which I was grateful for. Don't get me wrong, I appreciated living on campus, because I mean, I feel, had I not lived on campus, I would have struggled much more. But then it also, I feel like that also added on to the experience in itself, because I was, I struggled, because I mean, I walk into the first classroom, and just being in a lecture for an hour and a half, and then being like, okay, cool. So not having any, like, where, again, we just left high school, in college, and I'm thinking, oh, we're gonna have homework due next, next classroom, next meeting, what have you. And then the professor was like, all right, you just got to read chapters 1 through 3, and we'll just pick up the conversation next. And I was like, oh, so all I gotta do is just read. And I was like, all right, I mean, I can read when I get closer to it. And so I wasn't dedicating time. And even for you and I, like, man, remember what we used to do? What we used to do, like, being, staying up, watching videos on back then was Yahoo Messenger. We can play dominoes or pool online, or for us, we would just watch videos on YouTube, and because we were just like, oh, it's not as difficult as I thought, until the first exam kicked in. And then I thought I read everything, and next thing you know, I think it was my government class. It was a 9 a.m. course, and I get like a 40 in that exam, and I was like, oh, I thought I really didn't read. And so again, so it was like I had to go back and be like, okay, so maybe I'm reading wrong. But I didn't know. I didn't go up to ask questions to the professors. I didn't seek out help. You and I stayed in conversations, and I mean, even we reached out to a couple of folks back at whether they were at Adamson or other institutions, or other programs or organizations that we were involved in. But they really couldn't help us navigate that process, right? Once we like the minute we graduated, they were like, "All right, cool, you got this. Go do what you got to do." Without realizing, like, man, like actually, I need a little bit additional help, because I mean, it's not the same. It's a different ball game being in college. And I'm being a first gen. My parents didn't go to college. My mom managed. I mean, she finished, I think, ninth grade in Mexico, and my dad. I mean, he didn't make it past elementary school. So for me, it was like, oh, being the first one to graduate high school, be the first one to go to college, and so that in itself was an interesting experience, and it led on to just kind of like really trying to figure out how do we navigate this process. And unfortunately, we struggled. I struggled a lot my first semester. And I lived on campus. I never took advantage of the math lab or the writing labs or any of those labs, even though they were covered in orientation. Again, for me, it was like, oh, like it's there, but I don't know what that was. And so just because I really didn't really understand that. So I think that first semester, it was just like it was I was being forced to, one, be on your own, understanding that we have so much autonomy. To this is my first, growing up with my parents. I wasn't I wasn't a kid that would, go out, during high school or any of that. I mean, I was at home. I was either doing homework or helping around, or I was working with my pops. And so going off to college, I was still doing the those same things every weekend. I would go back home, but I was really just, trying to figure out college and getting involved. And the fact that I really didn't see a lot of Hispanic students, or even just in general people that looked like me or came from the same background as I did. I think that's where I struggled a little bit that first semester. How about you? How was that experience for you, being in top 10% and transition over to A&M, because you were what, 3 hours away?
Yeah, yeah. What was your GPA, Joe? The first
Um,
semester.
the first semester I managed to bring it up to like a 2.5 something. I know midterms I was feeling everything but one class. One class I had an A. Everything else was horrible. And I think we mentioned this in the last episode. We talked to how Miss Mack had a she came up. She drove up all the way to Richardson. And again, this is a teacher that she didn't have to. She with the minute that we graduated from calculus, she didn't have to do anything else. But she took interest in our success, and she drove up all the way to Richardson. And I believe she lived in Arlington. So making that drive up there, which is about 20-25 minutes east of Oak Cliff, I mean rather west. And so she drove all the way up there, sat me down, and told me, okay, this is how you read. This is how you take notes. This is how you reach out to your professor. And I was like, man, those are so basic, but I didn't realize how important those things played in my success, because I eventually ended up doing them. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, she's awesome, and I'll bring up. I don't even remember a discussion that we had. It was actually during this time when we took that trip when she told me. Uh, I'll bring that up. No, Joe, but I mean, being 3 hours away, right? I went to Texas A&M, right? So that's basically what this rule was passed for, right? To get students into those flagship schools. And I mean, I managed to get in. I managed to get a full ride, and I decided to join the Corps Cadets, right? And I think that was something else that added to my stressful environment whenever I got to college, right? So during FOW, Joe, and I'm pretty sure you remember. Well, I mean, I told you afterwards because they took my phone away during, and I didn't really have any connection with the outside world during that week. FOW is freshman orientation week for those that are joining the Corps Cadets, right? The Corps Cadets, I mean, I think a lot of individuals know what the Corps Cadets is at Texas A&M University, but just a military organization, I would say, ROTC on steroids.
There you
So
go.
during that time they did kind of mimic, the training that individuals do, because many of those individuals, end up going and becoming officers, enlisting. which many of my buddies that I had at A&M, they're doing their thing in the military. Shout out to them, hats off to them. They do what they do. But man, FOW, Joe, like that is the first time I wanted to quit. So I didn't even start school yet, Joe.
Ooh.
I haven't even started school yet, but during FOW, dude, I just wanted to quit, man. I was in football, right? I was in that sport, but I mean, I really didn't give my 100% to football. I mean, I could exercise, I could run, I could do that, but I wasn't mentally fit, because I mean, the chronic does break you emotionally, mentally, and physically, and during, I mean, I wanted to quit. Me and my old lady, we sat up in bed one time and talked to our CO and said, hey man, I want to quit. He's like, I mean, you're not quitting. We got to push through. We're almost done. I think this was probably like 2 days before we finished FOW and became fish. Um, and I mean, that was, yeah. So I wanted to quit before school started. That should tell you something about, our thoughts about quitting once school started, right? So I'm gonna begin with my GPA midterms, right? Midterms, I had a 1.6 GPA midterm. So, and I mean, I was failing majority of my classes, right? And I was in probation. They put me in probation for my scholarships. I mean, they eventually took majority of those scholarships and just kept the scholarships that FAFSA gave me, which is for being, low income student. And the Corps does gave me a scholarship, and I mean, basically that money was just to pay off the uniforms and stuff like that. But yeah, Joe, I mean, I don't think I was ready. I feel like being in the Corps forced me to have structure, but I don't think you can force a structure on somebody that fast, especially an individual that never really had structure, right? Especially an individual that slept in class majority. I mean, all 4 years, even my senior year, I slept in class. I mean, many teachers really didn't like that about me, right? I think the person that outdid me was Goodlow. I mean, I think he slept the best in every single class, right? Shout out to Goodlow wherever he's at. But that's what I did. Like, I turned in homework, I turned in assignments. I think the only two classes that forced me to do good was the AP English and calculus, right? And I didn't even take pre-cal. They just moved me to calculus. I mean, I don't want to say because they saw something in me, but because they needed numbers to be in that class. And I mean, I eventually, I mean, I think I got a B in Miss Mac's class, but yeah, Joe, I mean, I didn't have the discipline, I didn't have the skills, I didn't talk to any of my professors. I was afraid, dude. I was afraid to even come back to the quad as a freshman, dude. It was like, so it was various different things. I slept, dude. I used to go and sleep in the library my freshman year, Joe, because I didn't want to go back to the dorm because I didn't want to do core stuff. And I mean, that was preventing me from truly taking time to study. We did have study time in the dorms, but I mean, I really didn't know how to use them. I really didn't know how to study. I didn't really know how to take notes. I mean, all my notes were ugly. I mean, even to this point, I write ugly, but I can, take decent notes. I mean, and I mean that shows success us in our masters, right? We, I think, did 10 times, 20 times better from undergrad, dude. But yeah, dude, I wasn't ready for A&M. I'm still surprised that I managed to graduate because, dude, I put myself in a big hole. And during that time, I mean, there was other things going on with that house. I mean, my dad, he got injured at the job, so that's when like a lot of rebar fell on top of him. So I mean, he couldn't work, and then many of our individuals have that attachment to our families, right? And I mean, those that have read my book, you will understand that the relationship that I have with my family, but still those things impacted me, right? So I mean, me and you had this conversation about dropping out, right? What's the point, watching our conspiracy theories videos about 9/11 inside job
All
and
that
the
good stuff.
Illuminati and all that interesting things. But whenever he had that accident, and I'm pretty sure I told you, Joe, I mean, I think I should drop out and just go and work
Yeah.
and help my parents, right? And I think it was until somebody told me, and I've been using this ever since to tell students, right? Um, Even if you go and help your parents have been doing that for since they came to America, right? So whether you go and help them or not, and you don't take care of your business, and right, my business was getting educated, like we say, educated and graduating from Texas A&M to eventually be able to provide something better for our parents, right? And we're still working on that. Right? I mean, there's a lot of things that we still have to work with our own personal things, Joe. But yeah, man, I wasn't ready, dude. A 1.6 GPA, dude, that's horrible. That's horrible. I mean, I think I got it to a 2.1 after the first year, but dude, that's horrible. Or a 2.0, whichever one that got me off probation. But dude, it just, I wasn't ready. I mean, SAT. I mean, we slept in the SAT. I mean, I slept in the SAT. I just did whatever,
Yeah.
knowing that I was gonna get admitted anyway. So I didn't care about doing anything on the SAT, especially after they didn't tell us what the hell the SAT was for. So yeah, man, and I mean, as you can see, I mean, right, top 10%, an individual that didn't care about school. Then you mentioned an individual that, did work, did school yourself, and managed to be out there helping your parents work, right? And I mean, that should tell you, like, I mean, there's something with the top 10% rule. I mean, it's equal, like you said, right? It gave us that opportunity and put our foot in the door, right? Now the only thing is, I mean, it's easy to come back, and I don't know why. Why did we stay, Joe?
Man, well, because remember, like we were beyond passing all those, like watching all those videos and what have you. I think at some point we were like legit thinking about, you know what, let's just drop out and join the military.
That's right.
Because for me in high school, I was in JROTC for 4 years.
Yeah.
So for me, like, but obviously it was nothing compared to what you went through the Corps. The closest maybe that I can think of is going to summer camp. For me, was at Camp Bullis, which is in San Antonio. And so for for being in JROTC 4 years, UT Dallas didn't have, and at the time I didn't know that they had a partnership with UTA. If I really wanted to, I could partner up and go join the ROTC program at UTA. But I think for us, what ultimately was like, hey, like we really want to, drop out and go to the military because we thought that would be the easy way out, right? Like an easy way. And I remember that I reaching out to my command sergeant major from Adamson, and I reach out to him and be like, hey, you know what? Because I mean, he's the one that had connected to como se llama, to like the recruiters and what have you. And I reached out to him and I asked him like, hey, like I'm actually, my buddy and I are really interested in joining the military now. So is there a way that you can connect me to the local recruiter X, Y, and Z? And I guess he was another person that actually took interest in ensuring that I was successful in my own way, because he said, because he went, after having the conversation with him, he asked me, he's like, what makes you think that joining the military is going to be any easier than going to college? And then I was like, huh, that is true. Like, I'm at this point, I'm thinking, oh, I'll drop out of college so I don't have to read, write, do math, X, Y, and Z. But to go and be do like nothing but physical activity, and like you mentioned, all the training that you went through the Corps Cadets, like imagine that amplifying that much more, joining whatever military branch. And at the time, you and I both were really heavily interested in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And so again, like in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, this is gonna be easier. And after having a conversation with him, I was like, yeah, there's no way this is gonna be easier. Just because, I mean, everything that you went through in FOW, which is freshman orientation week, right? So what you went through in that time frame, I can only imagine thinking that is going to be amplified much more in basic training, which basic training is what I think like an entire summer. So he literally told me, he was like, you know what, take the next semester, do what you got to do differently, and if by the end of May, at that point it would have been May 2010, because this is happening, fall of 2009. All of this, and it's happening all fall of 2009. And when we talked to him, was roughly around midterm, so it was what, October, November-ish. And then he tells me like, you know what, just do one more semester at UTD, and in the event that that you tried everything and it doesn't work out, then okay, I'll put you in contact with a recruiter, and you'll do what you got to do. And which for me was really, I think it left a very deep impact, and I didn't realize how much, because his job, he could have easily been like, no, okay, here goes the recruiter, go join the military. And then I don't know how that works, if he gets extra income or points or what have you for referring, for having somebody to join, right? But no, he took interest, and that's why, I mean, you and I we talked about it. We're like, you know what, let's do one more semester. And this is, at this point, is like, this when I ended up getting my Yukon. And so that's when you and I started, we started spending, like, we hanged out a lot online virtually. You were 3 hours away, I was 30 minutes up north from Oak Cliff. And then I get my Yukon. And then I remember, I think the first time I went down to campus was it spring break,
Yeah.
2010. which is a first spring break in college. I remember driving, I remember finishing my exam that Friday, that Thursday night, and staying up, trying to stay up all night and leaving first thing in the morning on Friday morning because you were wrapping up your exam. And so I remember rushing down and scooped you up. And so at this point, we were already doing a little bit better, I think, because between midterms and spring 2010, our second semester in college, like Miss Mac had already, given us, conversations about, hey, like this is how you study, this is who you talk to, this is who you need to go to. At that point, I remember at least engaging one of my professors for sure. But then also, I remember connecting someone else from the Multicultural Center at UTD. Shout out to them one time for sure. They came in clutch not only for me but for a lot of students too. But the gentleman, he told me about, but you and I both were in student organizations in high school. One of those being LULAC, right? And so this is all I've known, and I knew that they had one in college, I guess. Which is now the Young Adults Council. And so I remember he reached out to me telling me, hey, we have a meeting, which actually was a social, like you should come out. And when I come out, I'm like, this is the first time I see not one, not two, but like maybe 20 plus, Hispanic Latinx students there on campus. And I was like, my dudes, we're heavy. I've been. And
I
then I
need
come
a
to find
shot.
out they're like, I come to find out they're upperclassmen. Most of them are living, they don't live on campus. They're living around the Richardson area. Or the rest of us they were commuting, which second year, my sophomore year in UTD, I was commuting at that point. I started commuting from Oak Cliff all the way to Richardson, and so I was realizing like, oh wow, this is why there's not a lot of us living on campus. Now I know UT Dallas has grown over the years. There were a lot of construction when I was there, but seeing that made me realize like, man, like these are the reasons, because there's that imposter syndrome that kicked in. I know a lot of us talk about it, and as adults now we get to kind of like analyze that and understand what truly is that, and even as a professionals now that still kicks in, because it's like, is this theory, this thought process that you don't belong, that we don't belong, and I think that was something that since day one, I remember moving into campus, even doing our meeting, getting to know like everybody in the hallway. I had two roommates. One roommate was both, I think both of them from Plano East and Plano West, or something along those lines. And and it was just one of those things where it's like, man, like you from Oak Cliff, and I was like, yeah, like and even other people I got a chance to meet, that I would tell like from Oak Cliff, and they would like they would ask silly questions like, oh, have you ever been shot at? And I was like, nah, fam, because I'm the one doing the shooting, just kidding. And then I would see their face, they're like, wait, what? Now I'm just messing with y'all. And and so those conversations, but there were silly conversations, and it was just very interesting just seeing that in a sense, because like they're like, for me, like to them that was an honest question that they wanted to figure out. And I was like, and to me it was like, why would you even why would you even ask that, and but in my head, like, it's processing that. And then talking to professors, and there was another professor that he even asked me like, how come you're not, he would tell me, how come you're not talking in class, because 10% of your grade is participation. I was like, oh, I mean, I don't think I have anything of value to say. And he's like, well, this is the plan between now and the rest of the semester. You're gonna have an opportunity. You either talk between the first, I think it was an hour and a half class. You have an hour and 15 minutes to engage however you want to engage, whether it's one word you want to say or have a conversation. If you don't do that before the end of the class, you won't be able to leave. Like, I will call you out in class, and I will say, Joe, did you birth is reading X, and ask, follow the question. And in my head, I'm like, okay, sure, you're gonna do that, And I'm like, oh no, yeah, I'll get involved. And I kid you not, the first two classes after that conversation, he legit called me out. He was like, hey Joe, so I know you did the reading, so what'd you think about about this particular comment? I was like fidgeting, like, oh snap, like I remember doing the reading, but because I was put on blast, put on the spot, I was like, I was struggling and what have you. And then after the second time we did that, I was like, oh man, like he's dead serious, And so then he kind of helped me build my confidence to be able to engage in classroom conversations. And I realized that, man, like I always fear that anything and everything that I said would be dumb, or anything like that. And then I realized, man, like sometimes my answers were dead spot on, or I was the only one that got the answer right or what have you. But but it was all because the little head and the little voice in my head, in our heads, that we'll constantly hear, is like telling me, nah fam, what you're gonna say is not important. You don't belong here, don't even worry about it. You're just gonna just ride the wave, and stuff like that. So I think that was ultimately like that for the first semester, first year, man. But I think what, and I'll wrap with this in terms of this, like I think what really helped me out, other than the professors, our parents, help doing what they could. I think one of the reasons why I was actually successful is because I had someone I could talk to on a regular basis that understood what I was going through, and that was you. Like you and I, both of us were like, man, like we're in this and we're in this together. Like we're sticking for the long ride. And look at us. We met each other what, sophomore year, between sophomore year and Adamson. So that was 2006, 2007. So man, it's been 13 years that we've known each other at least, and we went through high school, through that transition from high school to college, to now. And so, and even Miss Mac, she always says like we're brothers separated at birth. We would There was a point where we would always be in finishing our own sentences, but because we were so in sync in understanding that. And I think now, as professionals in this in higher ed, we see that. And I think, I mean, for me, going back, like reflecting back on that, is like the success in education, like for my and personal and professional, is like is because I had someone that understood exactly. My professors, they did the research. Cool, you did the research on this. You understand, quote unquote, right, based on research, what is going to make me successful. But from experience, like I was telling them, I'm like, man, this guy, he understands, because we're both going through that. So I think that's one of the main things that, trying to get out is like, we all have that. And finding that someone that can help us understand that, or having a support system. I think that's a future topic for sure, for a future podcast.
Oh yeah, I mean, and so that, I mean, that was the overall general discussion for us, right? Being in the top 10%, and that was just a way into those institutions, those prestigious institutions. And I mean, we it there's a individual that I mean I listen to, and he says, make a big goal, and not just to achieve that goal, but what type of person will it make you, when you do achieve that goal. And I think doing and going through this 4 years of experience at our respective colleges made us understand that what is the real things our students need to be successful in college, right? And I don't think, and bro, like we're in 2020, dude, and right now the times are getting even tougher for our students, dude. And it's crazy that the problems that our students are having nowadays was the problems that we were having, right? That people before us were having, right? And I think this is a bigger discussion that we have to have, and that no one's having. I don't know why people are not having this. What is going on in Dallas County that is preventing our kids from having success, right? And right now we're just focusing on college success, right? Because if there has been a consistent 28% graduation rate from 2 to 4 year institutions within a 6 year, and that has been going on for I don't know how many years. I mean, more than 6 years. There's a problem. There's a problem with the leadership here in Dallas County. I mean, there's a problem with individuals here. I mean, I really, we should care what happens, at a national level, right? But this is affecting us right now. This is affecting us, our people, our community directly. Why are we not talking about it? Why are we not educating our parents about it? Truly educating our parents, not just telling them what they should do based on your own opinion. No, let the educated parents and let them decide, right? Because everyone should have the freedom to decide what they ever want to do, right? If Dallas IZ is a low performing district, I mean, you can't force parents to send their kids there, right? I'm not saying that Dallas IZ is a low performance district, but just to give an idea, right? If parents live in a neighborhood where the school's not performing great, I mean, do something about that community, or let the parents, send their kids somewhere else, right? And I mean, we'll talk about it, discuss it more, but like, if I am blessed to have kids, Joe, I'm gonna send my kids to private schools. I'm gonna send my kids to, one of the dream schools. I'm gonna send my kids to Green Hill schools. I'm gonna have them challenge the system over there, right? We know the system, right? And we overcame the system that is going on here in Dallas, in different institutions, and right now we're encountering that within our professions. But I don't want to take advantage from the resources meant to help individuals like me, right? So my kids are not going to be in the same situation as I am, so they should not be taking advantage of resources meant to help individuals that truly need that help and understanding, right, Joe? But I mean, I feel we need to, like, my personal thing is we need to remove ourselves from focusing solely on the top 10% rule and focus on go talk, understand, be resourceful, understand how to communicate, understand how to sell yourself, go volunteer, go shadow somebody, right? Practice, study the SAT, right? Stop worrying about, I mean, that is the biggest thing that we fail. We tell our kids how horrible the world is and that they're going to be failures. We keep doing that directly and indirectly, and I don't think we should do that to our students, right? Instead of doing that, tell them, yes, your present is heavy, right? But there is a way out, and it's going to require so much sacrifice for you to do it, right? Your parents have been doing this. Do not do the same thing as your parents. Do not fall victim to your community, but be a victor within your community and come back. Like many individuals that do end up being successful, they leave. I'm like, dude, why are you leaving? Yes, I mean, it's cool for you to get a house. It's cool for you to do this, but come back and serve your community, right? And we have been serving. Yes, I live in Mesquite, right? I live in Mesquite, Texas, and the wife was the boss and determined where we needed to get our house. But I mean, she doesn't determine where I need to work, right? And I'm working in schools like I mean, various school. I mean, I wish I could work in other schools. I mean, in your profession, in your job, and you work every single school in that size D. I mean, I'm just limited to six, but I mean, I like to talk to a lot of individuals. But come back and be of service to your community, right? Don't let your community serve you because I mean, that's what many nonprofits are doing. They're taking advantage of our communities. They're filling up their pockets, and they're every single year they give us the same results. There's got to be a time where we as a community set our foot down, Joe, and request accountability, right?
Yo,
Send
that's
me a report of you doing something, right? And look, I love my job, Joe, because if I'm not doing what I need to do, they take it away. Like they'll take whatever I'm doing away like that. The federal government don't play, right? But we don't do that to our local nonprofits, dude. They have gotten away with so much things, and they focus like this is where they get their numbers. Joe, top 10% rule. Or you're gonna get admitted to school, just get out of here, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. But no, I mean they keep coming back. So I think they should be held accountable for every single student that comes back, and they need to repay what that was paid because they didn't have success in college. Or imagine if that was the case, like I have to repay $50,000 or $15,000 per student that came back from college because they couldn't have success. Joe. You know how many nonprofits would like stop doing what they're doing, and how
for
many
sure.
other nonprofits would evolve? Dude, I mean, I think this is a different conversation that we need to have. Like, let's have those conversations. So, like, I mean, you've been doing this longer than I have in a professional level, right? So, I mean, you see this day to day. Like, hey, man, I don't think we should be doing that. And many individuals know you and respect you because you do what they wish they could do, which they can, but they don't want to, right? That's why I mean, Joe is the go-to person in
Man,
data size D, and I mean,
man, I
anyone knows it. We're just trying to follow your lead, but it's not about following your lead, Joe. It's just if you really care about this education system, care about the profession that you're doing, do justice for it, not
no,
just
and no, for sure, and I agree. Like I totally agree that like a lot of the work, it's there's. I remember listening to board of trustee from Fort Worth ISD a couple years ago that mentioned like nonprofits like shouldn't exist after a decade doing the exact same thing. That after a decade they should be evolving to doing something more or adding more responsibilities because the reason why nonprofits work is to identify a problem, fix the problem, and then evolve. And oftentimes, and it also depending on the work in itself. So to an extent, I believe that's true. But then too, like going to your comment about like yes, I think we definitely need to have accountability across the board, whether it's through the districts that we work with, the districts that are serving our students, the CBOs, the community-based organizations that are out there serving our students, especially if they've been around for more than a decade for sure. But I think we even have to take it a step further and also work and challenge those institutions, that are receiving us, because oftentimes, that's where, imagine like just having everything that we need to go to have in order for us to be prepared, all the resources, and education to be ready to go to UTD, to A&M. But once we get there, it's a different ball game too. So even if we had an A team back at home that supported us and helped in us, but once we arrive on that campus and they just don't have the right resources. And I think being 2020, I think we're moving. I think institutions are moving in the right direction, and because there's a lot of there's leadership. Like for example, UT Dallas, there's the people that are my mentors that I actually worked as a student, that they've been there, and man, if they made so much progress, whether it's a community engagement department or whether there's a multicultural
Yeah.
center out there, like man, they put in work, and because they know, and they keep, and the beauty of that is that they keep themselves accountable. They see like, hey, like we this year we raised X amount of money for scholarships, and we supported this amount of students. Next year we have to do better because we know that our program is working, and this is what we have to show for, right? And I think that that's something that institutions have to look at. Institutions have to understand that that they have to be, are they becoming a student ready institution ultimately at the end of the day? Are they truly prepared to take on everything that I bring, everything that what it means for me to be a first generation Mexican American student, low income student that was labeled at risk coming from Oak Cliff? Are they ready to handle
Mhm.
me? Are they ready to handle you at A&M? Were they ready to handle me at UT Dallas? And to an extent, maybe represent. I feel representation matters as well. So I really never I think in my entire UT Dallas experience, I only actually I had one professor that remotely looked like me, and shout out to him. He was my freshman, and it was my freshman 101 course, and through his classes introduced me to one of my mentors, that helped me be successful, work on campus and what have you. So I mean, we can definitely keep going on, and I think this eventually may become a two-parter that we may have to do later down the road. But I mean, I think like we have to, it's like a two-prong thing. Like we have to keep our leadership, our district leadership, our campus leadership, CBOs, again, community-based organizations, and their leadership accountable. Like we keep ourselves accountable. Like I know I try to do, and I know I'm not the best that I could do. All I want to do, like I say this a lot. All I want to do in my profession is I want to be the plug. I want to be the plug in higher ed, and I want to be able to, and even if I don't know all the answers, I know like, hey, you know what? You were trying to go to UNT Denton. Guess what? I know a couple of people out there. You want to go to UTA? Don't we got you. We got some people that work over there too. You want to go to UNTD? Man, my best friend works out there. So it's being
Gotcha.
having that connection, that network, because that network, I'm not using it to we're not using it to benefit us. On the contrary, we want our students to benefit from that. We want to be able to reach out to them and be like, hey fam, like I need you to do me a solid. I have a student, that it's interested. This is where they're at, and that's why I appreciate having had the opportunity to work in admissions first, and now being in outreach and working at various institutions, because it gave me the inside knowledge that I needed to know to prep our students. So even if my students are not top 10%, well, guess what? There's institutions that have top 25% rule. You're in the top 25%, you're going to be automatically admitted. We're helping them understand the SAT and ACT. So I think that's just something important for us to definitely. And I think and I think every episode we'll end up tackling that here and there, just bits, because I mean it's a conversation that is never going to end.
Yeah.
Because if the last 10 years since when we were high school students, when we were in our students' shoes 10 years ago, and we had the same questions and the same struggles as they did, as they're currently having, I mean, that even tells me that like everything that I've done is still not enough. And
Yeah.
but I'm only one person, and
Yeah.
so but that should serve as motivation, I think, for us to keep doing what we do, and encourage more. And I've had the opportunity to see a lot of students even go into higher ed, and see them at different capacities. So seeing that, or even colleagues of mine. So definitely, I think that's again a conversation that we'll keep going. So any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
You say we're getting old, Joe.
We're getting old.
We're hitting our 30s, and we need to. Those students need to come and take our jobs. Those students need to come and take our place, because I mean, if we want to improve in life, I mean, we can't be here in the same position for 10 years.
I totally agree, man. And I think that's something that I've learned, from you and your team, like seeing that, it's like I shouldn't be here very long, unless I'm able to provide other people avenues, or
Mhm.
a platform for them to come out. Because I know people that have been in their position 10 plus years, but what they do, they leverage that position, they leverage their
Yeah.
position to be able, you know what? you know, you want to go, you need to do this, or this is an institution you can go work for. This is an institution that can open the door for you
Yeah.
to do the work
Bridge
that you're doing.
connectors.
Exactly, and I appreciate them so much
UTD
for that.
has
But yeah,
good
man,
ones, Joe.
yeah, bro.
UTA has good ones.
Yeah, UTA has some good ones. UTD has some good ones for sure. But no, but yeah, man, we are definitely getting old, man. I'm 29. Yes, I'm in las canas. I took some out, hoping that I get more, but we'll see how that works.
Bro, pero no me sale beard. No, all right, Joe. Yeah, Joe, let's
Right. Alrighty. Well, I mean, I think yeah. So I mean, I think I can thank you all for joining us for episode 3, Between Two Borders. Again, my name is Joe Posada.
What's your name now, Joe? Anacleto Contreras, and thank you all.
And
Have a
we
blessed day.
yeah, and appreciate y'all, and thank you very much.